In the lead up to a wedding, cold feet are as common as save the dates, astronomical budgets, and family drama. But sometimes, cold feet have a way of chilling a whole wedding. Can a relationship survive a postponed ceremony? Our couple today learned the hard lesson that good things come to those who wait. I am your host, Trevor White, and this is Marriage Stories. All right, welcome. This week on Marriage Stories, we are joined by Chad and Emily, and we're excited to hear more about their story and their experience. So, Chad, Emily, would you please introduce your partner like we start every week with?
Sure. So this is Chad. He's been my husband for 8.5 years now. And for those of you who can't see him, he's super handsome. And he's a software engineer
I concur.
here in Seattle, but he's originally from Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And this is
Emily. Before we get into Emily here, Chad's a software engineer. What else is he into? What are some of the things that he enjoys?
Working out. And over the last 4.5 years, parenting, that's been probably trumped a lot of our hobbies. And he's been the most amazing dad to watch really blossom into his role. And I always joke that he's the primary parent because the kids go to him first, and it's awesome to watch.
Yeah. And what is it that you'd say draws you to him?
Oh gosh, his sense of humor probably, first of all, is kind of what I noticed. He was just really easy to talk to and really silly, but and down to earth, but also just really caring and always makes you feel like the center of his attention all the time. And I don't have to fight for his attention, which is really nice in a house full of kids.
Yeah. Wonderful. Is this a fitting introduction to you, Chad?
I think so. She may have exaggerated a few things, especially my looks, but we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Well, there is video evidence here, so that's
what I'm afraid of.
The people will decide. Okay. So, your turn, Chad. Introduce us to Emily.
Yep, this is my beautiful wife, Emily. She is originally from Gig Harbor, just down by in the Tacoma area. She is wonderful and my whole world, and these last 8.5 years of being married to her have been the best adventure. She is an executive assistant, and she is fantastic at her job.
Wonderful. Now, doing a little bit of research here before the pod, I think Emily also has some sort of history with Olympic sports. Is there a story there that's of interest?
Yes, that is a big deal. She was an Olympic caliber flat water kayaker, which is kind of a niche sport in certain areas, but it's really cool. She tried to get me to sit in her boat one time, and I tipped it over and broke it. So I couldn't even balance.
That was one of our early days while we were still dating.
Right.
But
nice.
it's not as big here in the US, but it's really big in Europe and Canada. And I was never in the Olympics, but I did the 2008 trials and went from there to the Pan American Games, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
It was before I knew Chad.
Yeah. So Chad, what is it that you'd say draws you to her?
Initially, it was her beauty. She is my smoking hot wife. Before that, I was just always attracted to her. I met her one of our, first weeks in college, and she doesn't remember that, but I remember thinking how gorgeous she was, and it took us until our senior year to officially meet and start to date. But as we've continued to grow and get to know each other and grow closer, it's really her kindness and just her fierce love for the people that she holds close. But also, I've never known such a strong, assertive person. And it's just like, I find that extremely attractive, and it's kind of different than me. So I just love how strong she is.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So Emily's a fitting introduction to you?
Very complimentary. I'll take it.
Oh, we want positive here, right? That's the idea. So tell us a little more about how we came to be as a couple. You mentioned that we met in college, you remember it starting right away, but not dating until we were seniors.
Right. We didn't officially meet, or I don't remember meeting him until just before our senior year. Yeah.
So how did it happen?
Well, we met at a local establishment in Seattle called the Ballroom, which is a nightclub.
Yes.
And we were there with our respective groups of friends, and we started dancing, and I just... Wait, did we meet before that?
We met at a barbecue.
Yeah, we met at a barbecue like that week
or two before the Ballroom.
Yeah, and we had a mutual friend who had known Chad from high school, who was talking to him, and then I went over and started talking to him, and we talked for a really long time, actually. And then it was kind of a fluke. I had just gotten back from a trip in Europe, and we talked about that. We talked about how Chad had this goal of joining the military, which I was not interested, because like the one thing that was a absolute no on my checklist was somebody that was serving in the military. I just didn't think I
so
could
that was like
that
a total
partner.
Right. Not because your political views or stance
immediate...
on the military, but
No, I just didn't think I was like strong enough to have a partner that was absent a lot of the time and who I was in fear of their life all the time.
Right.
So, nothing was initiated during that conversation. But I think later that week, it was just before the school year started, we were out at the club and ended up dancing a lot. And my friends made me leave, and I wasn't ready to leave. And I remember sitting on the driveway when we got home and saying, take me back. Because I wanted to keep hanging out with Chad.
Right. For those of you that are not from the Seattle area, the Ballroom is a establishment like I think every college town or probably just urban center in general has a place like this where a lot of people end up, getting together. Right. There's a lot of stories for the Ballroom. So that's a great piece of trivia.
It's a very romantic place. Well, it was. It unfortunately shut down, but it was. A lot of couples were made there, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, it's been renamed twice.
I didn't know that. So after that night, I didn't see Chad again for several months, actually. I had heard a rumor that he got back together, sort of, with his ex-girlfriend that first semester or quarter of college. And then it wasn't until Christmas time, when my roommates and I were hosting our annual giant Christmas party, that he came with his friends who I knew, and we talked until way after it shut down. And then he asked for my number, and shortly thereafter we went on a quick succession of many dates, and the rest is history.
Nice. And that was when the kayak situation happened too.
Right, later that
probably
spring.
In the spring. I wouldn't force him into that.
Right.
Not in the winter.
So how did we decide to get married?
Just kind of fit. I mean, I don't think there was really a question in either of our minds. I imagine we had conversations about like what it was that we wanted, and I think just off the bat it was very clear that our values and our goals aligned. We both came from kind of similar families, similar backgrounds, and wanted the same things for our lives, I think. And so it just it really clicked, and early on it was a conversation I think that we had pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was pretty fast and furious. I think we were officially boyfriend and girlfriend in February, and by April we were talking about how each other was the one. So it was a very much like when you know kind of feeling.
Yeah, so fast and furious sort of thing from Christmas to April, and feeling like, all right, this is the person I want to be with. That's certainly very exciting. And we were like, what, 21, 22 at this
22, and he, I should just say that he had quickly dropped all desire of joining the military.
I'm sure you perhaps had an influence. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make sure that's what he really wanted. I didn't want him to just do it because of me, but that was one of the things that I didn't want to officially enter into a relationship with him unless I knew that that wasn't going to happen.
Right. So were we talking about that openly, where it's like, hey, this is a thing for me that just can't be?
Yeah. I mean, I remember having a conversation, we were outside of Molly Moon's, having like kind of the conversation where I like kind of told you and came to like said like I'm done with that. Like if following that path for me would cost you, then like I pick you. And for me, it wasn't like she didn't give me an ultimatum or it wasn't anything like that. It's like I wanted that for my life, but I also knew I wanted other things for my life, and you know, a family and kind of that that closeness, being able to be present with her and any future family we might have. Like I knew those things were kind of at odds with each other, and I know it's possible, but for me, the military, it was also kind of something that I was looking towards because I didn't know what else to do too. So it was kind of like filling up that vacuum of not being so certain in my future coming out of college. So Emily helped me. Getting with Emily and like us really like moving forward and getting serious, like that helped me kind of, I don't know, do the hard work of figuring out like what my life's calling is, what I want to do, and like how Emily fits in with that. So I owe her a lot.
Yeah. Now, you were saying around April, we decided, we were each other's ones. What happened next?
Well, we had to keep getting to know each other's families and finish school. And then Chad actually ended up going back for a 5th year to study something different. But I finished school, and then I kind of put on the pressure a little bit. I was like, all right, we know this is going to happen.
Right.
So looking back, it seems crazy because I was only 22 years old. And at 22, you think you know everything and you don't. But I think around October timeframe, I was really like, when is this going to happen?
Right.
When are we getting engaged? We went and looked at rings that month, I think. And then after we looked at rings, it was like we booked a wedding date and a wedding venue before we had actually gotten engaged, which I think put a lot of pressure on it too, because I wanted to share that information with people. And we had already talked about that we wanted this. So I thought we were both ready, and that there was no question, which I don't think there was a question from Chad on if he wanted to get engaged or not, but he was a broke college student. So he wanted to give me like the ring of my dreams also. So that was like, there was some added pressure there. So I'm ashamed to say, like, looking back, it was at the holidays, I was like, is it going to happen? Am I going to be engaged by Christmas? Can you give me a clue? Will it be Christmas? Will it be New Year's when Christmas passed? Will it be Valentine's Day? And it wasn't, and it wasn't. And then he ended up proposing in February, so just 1 year after we started dating. In Colorado when we were back there for his sister's wedding.
So you were saying that for you, you started putting on some pressure. What was going on inside of yourself that, invited you to want to put some of that pressure on?
She just liked me so much.
You said he was good looking.
He was. He is.
What?
I was really excited. I was ready. I think it was also other people in my life were getting engaged and sharing it, and I wanted to do the same. And so it was, I think I was influenced by external factors.
Totally.
Also, I'm also very much like a planner. And if I have something that I want to achieve, I need a working backwards plan. And we had this wedding date and I wanted to start planning, but I didn't want to plan until I was engaged. And so it was like, all right, Chad, you've got one thing to do and then I can start doing my job.
Right.
Yeah. I'm more type A if you can't tell.
So what was that like for you, Chad?
I mean, like I said, I think I was drawn to that. I'm very much more laid back and a little bit more like go with the flow. So like I was drawn to Emily because like that was like what I needed. And I think like we helped to balance each other.
Right.
And there was no question in my mind too. Like I knew I wanted to marry her. I knew I wanted to end up with her, but it did at times feel like a little bit rushed. But like I said, like I did take it as like, wow, she really loves me. Like she really does want to be married to me. So I like, I was comforted by that. And like, it just seemed like I was right there with her too, though. Like it seemed like the thing to do. You know, you grow up, you go to college, you find your person, and then you get married and start your life. So it's like, this was like kind of like the next step for us and it all just kind of fit.
Right.
So like it took me, I think this is probably leading into like when we did decide to postpone, but like it took me after getting engaged and like looking towards the wedding to kind of realize that just like something was off with our relationship and it just didn't quite feel right. And I don't mean to speak for Emily, but like for me, it just didn't feel like how I always envisioned feeling when like I was getting engaged and going to be married soon.
Totally. This is a really normal thing I run into a lot. Emily, you're describing this kind of timeline, right? Of the holidays and these moments where people commonly do get engaged. In the wintertime, as a couples therapist, I see a lot of people kind of like yourselves, right, that are prospective, would love to get engaged kind of couples, right? And it's such an interesting moment to kind of think about, what are we supposed to feel? Like, how do you know that you're ready, right? And Chad, you're saying that once you got engaged, there was just some sort of feeling of something being off.
Yeah. It was, I don't know, like looking back, it's been almost 10 years, so it's like hard to remember exactly what those feelings were, but I guess it was like, there was like an anxiety, just being anxious about being married, and that just didn't seem right to me. And at first I couldn't like pinpoint it. And it took a while for me to like come to terms with, even just to be able to admit it to myself and say like, I'm not ready for this.
Right.
We're not ready. And like, it was the hardest. It was terrible because I was keeping it from her and not being open with Emily about how I was feeling. Like I wanted to show her that I was excited and that like I loved her and that this is what I wanted. But I had this fear that if I verbalized it, if I told her like I'm feeling a little like this is a little fast or like we need a little bit more time just to like settle into this, like I had a fear that would hurt her and then that would like cause things to go off the rail. And that in and of itself was the problem, was I couldn't be honest with Emily about how I felt because I was afraid that I would upset her.
Yeah. And what happened when you did share?
I upset her.
You were right. No. You were right the whole time.
Called it.
Yeah.
And, like, this isn't anything like Emily hadn't given me reason to feel this way. Like it wasn't like I had like past experience with her when I'd tell her something and she'd tell me to shut up and, kind of backhand me and be like, enough.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm.
This is sarcasm.
Chad's very sarcastic.
Like that's just my own struggle. Like that's something that I like struggle with today. It's, kind of the role I played in my family growing up was like the peacemaker. So like I carried that into my relationship with Emily. Like I, carried in my relationship with my friends and work. So it's like, that's just the work I had to do. And unfortunately it deeply affected Emily because like she had to say like, I'm going to hold on, like stick with you through this. And we're going to do the work that I need to do to be able to like open up and work through things and be honest with her about my feelings and my needs, or not. And thankfully she hung in there and gave us that time, gave us that freedom to do that. And I think our marriage now, even though we're one anniversary less than we could have been, I think our marriage has benefited from that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it like for you, Emily, to hear that from Chad?
It was crushing at first, and then I felt a lot of embarrassment because we were literally, I think, 5 weeks away from our wedding, or maybe 6 weeks away. We had already sent out save the dates and engagement photo. Everything was done, and we were literally stuffing the envelopes for the invitations when he was just like slumped up against the wall. And I was like, what is going on? And I really had to kind of force it out of him. It was really hard because obviously I think the first thing is I'm looking within myself to figure out what's wrong with me that he doesn't want to marry me. And then frustrated that someone that I feel so comfortable with being totally honest with doesn't feel as comfortable with me. I will say that in prioritizing financially where our money was going to go for the wedding, we hadn't done any sort of premarital counseling. And I think a big part of that was that we'd never had conflict. And so we were just like, what are we going to talk about? And we didn't really know what the point of counseling was if we didn't have any issues going into it. But kind of to echo what Chad said, he has a long history of not protecting other people's feelings and not wanting to cause any rifts, and kind of putting his own needs aside for the benefit of others and to be a peacemaker. And so I think he saw what was really important to me, and he thought he could muscle through it when he was having his own struggles. And I think the biggest thing really was he was back in school. He was kind of unsure of what his path would be. And we were still reliant on family for financial help. And I was, in my first job out of college, which was not paying well at all, he was working as a butcher at Whole Foods while he got through school. And so for him, looking at the traditional path of, the husband is supposed to provide, that was a lot of pressure too, of like, I can't give you what you want right when we start out. The kinds of places we were looking at to live were not the places that he was envisioning us being able to live. And so that was a big factor too. So for me, it was obviously crushing, but I also felt this overwhelming sense of peace of like, this is who I'm supposed to be with. And I think a really hard part was the people in my life that didn't know Chad as well, but knew me really well, formed an opinion of him after this that was not great. And I had to try to, vouch for him and defend him when I was really hurt. And looking back, I shouldn't have cared what they thought, but I think, that comes with age and maturity. So, and we postponed it indefinitely. We didn't set a new date until
so you just told your guests that we are postponing this, not that it's you weren't ending the relationship or anything like that. You're just saying we are delaying our wedding
until further notice.
So a lot of people go through a process similar to this, and it can be challenging in all the ways that you're describing, but it's also a rich opportunity for growth. And I'm curious, what did y'all do, in response to this revelation and postponement to, get yourselves to the altar eventually?
I mean, the first thing was we found a couples therapist, and went to him for, I don't know, a couple of months. And like, that was great. It was, for me, it was, it helped me learn how to open up and like communicate and show my true self. Like, I think I had this vision that I had to be a man and strong and hard and only ever be positive and goofy and silly and strong. But like, like everyone had needs and fears and anxieties and worries. And so being able to communicate those in a way that wasn't defensive and or offensive to Emily, just be like, here's how I'm feeling. Here's like kind of the facts about me. And then giving Emily the opportunity to react rather than assuming I know how she's going to respond. Like that was the biggest thing that I learned from that counseling. And then I went on and did some of my own counseling too later on to kind of continue that work. But that was the biggest thing. And we also, like we were coming out of school. So like had been living with friends and stuff. And in that year, like we both got our own apartment. So it was like our own chance, like the only time we've ever lived alone.
Right.
So I think that was good.
Yeah.
It was good to have that opportunity to do that before marriage, even though it was relatively short. We also just kind of like gave ourselves the freedom to pursue opportunities. So I started working for this family as a nanny, which I didn't have any intention of going back to nannying, but it was this really interesting opportunity where I was traveling with them 6 months out of the year. It was really, they really like upper high net worth situation. So I got to have these travel experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise had we gotten married.
Right.
And Chad finished up that year of school, started a 6-week program for software engineering, and was ready to start his first job just a year later after we postponed the wedding. So we both personally got a lot out of that year. The therapy really gave us tools to communicate with each other effectively. And Chad had said earlier that the postponement didn't come from anything that I had done, but really it's like little things that I would do that would frustrate him or bother him that he didn't feel like he could tell me. Like there was one, I tried to tell him how to cook bacon at one point, and that really stuck in his mind of like, he wanted to cook it his way, but he felt like I was steamrolling. And I was, because I never got any negative response back from him. So I figured he likes me to be this way. And so he would harbor this like, no, I like to cook it slow and steady, and she likes to cook it fast and hot.
I like to cook it right. And I vividly remember that. Like, I don't know, like if it fair, like that one moment, it was like we're making breakfast, and it's like, okay, Chad, you cook the bacon, I'm going to do everything else. So I'm over there, I have it on low, I'm simmering it, it's going away, and she just comes by and turns it on high. And for me, that was like that, there was just kind of like this realization of like, wow, I have no, like, I'm just here. I don't know. It's like, I don't know if like saying I have no power, or it's like, I'm just, maybe I didn't feel like her equal in the relationship, or like, that's when I realized I don't have a voice. And so, like it's funny to joke about, and like, we're both still that way, where I'm slow and meticulous, and Emily is fast and assertive. And she's right. Like, I love that about her. I am drawn to that, and her strength, and her bias for action is something that I do truly enjoy about her. But now if we're in those situations, I can say like, hey, back up, my baby.
Yeah. And just the tool of like, just even simply saying like, I don't feel heard. It's like, whoa, stop. And like, why, what am I doing to make you feel this way? And like not apologizing for each other's emotions. Like, sorry you're hurt. You feel hurt or whatever, instead of taking ownership over what I'm doing to kind of enforce that feeling. Just those simple tools. It was really simple communication tools, like foundational things that we learned in 8 weeks that have carried us through the last 10 years.
Absolutely. And these are the challenges, all these things you're describing, that are so normal for couples that get married at a young age, right? And you, in this time between postponing your wedding and when you actually got married, it seems like you were able to, avert a lot of those difficulties or address them in a way that was much less painful. Having time independently, living on your own, like these are things that people, when they get married right out of college, long for, think about wistfully, in the future. And it's great that you had those experiences, before getting married. Obviously, it seems like it set you up really well. So then, when did we get married? How much longer was it after the postponement?
It was 13 months. We were supposed to be married in September of 2013. We had the unfortunate conversation sometime in August or so. of 2013. We took that time, rest of 2013 into 2014, and then got married on October 5th.
Nice.
2014. So
wonderful. Yeah. So we've been married now for almost 9 years.
Coming up on 9.
And we've had 3 kiddos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's it been like, growing from getting married to adapting to this new stage of life of having young children?
It's been
great. Kids are awesome.
No. It's been a lot, but I feel like what we did in postponing our wedding kind of like got us over all these hurdles that couples experience later on in their relationship where, we had an amazing first year of marriage, and we usually hear that the first year is the hardest. And so it's like our first year was that prior year that we weren't actually married. And then we did have four great years of marriage before our son came along in 2018. And our advice to couples is always to get a dog before you have a
so
baby.
Cliche.
We did get a dog a year in, and we really babied the crap out of that guy. And it really taught us like partnership in kind of dividing and conquering. And so by the time we had our son, I feel like we were really ready. I mean, nothing makes you feel totally ready. And I think the move from 0 to 1 kids rocked me the hardest. But in terms of our relationship, I think we were both really prepared to kind of meet it together. And like I said before, Chad's sometimes the primary parent. He's just super involved. And so it's gone really smoothly because he's very comfortable taking the kids and giving me some space and jumping in and anticipating needs before they happen. And so he is super involved. We just had our third and last baby 6 weeks ago. And so we're in the throes of, postpartum and breastfeeding and all of that again, in the midst of having a preschooler and a 2-year-old who's into everything and climbing all over everything. And really cheers to work from home. Working from home has been such a blessing for us because we can both kind of support each other when we get a free moment here and there.
Yeah. How has having kids changed your relationship?
I mean, I don't know. It changes in a lot of ways. Sorry, it's kind of hard to think back. Like it truly has been a blur since having Silas, our oldest. I mean, Bruce, our oldest.
Changing the names to defend the innocent here.
Little late. Like Emily said, like getting a dog was like our first step, but it helped us become true partners. Because it was all of a sudden, it's not my dog, your dog, it's our dog. So anything that we wanted to accomplish with that dog, like we did it together. And that really carried over to our children. And when we had Silas, like that really solidified, like we're partners. We're in this in every sense of the word together. I was much better back then about like every time Emily got up in the middle of the night to nurse, like I was there laying on the floor and like trying to support her and be there. Now I sleep a little bit more heavily, so I don't think I hear all of the nighttime feedings.
One of us should be rested.
But
it's a difference between first and third child normally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure there are other ways where like just like kind of like our dynamic and our day-to-day has changed. But having kids has only solidified our partnership and brought us closer together.
Yeah, we're a little bit more of a machine now. We definitely get less time alone together, but I think that we're really good at capitalizing on the little pockets of time that we do have. And of course, I think like many parents, when we do get a date night, we end up talking about the kids a lot. But one of our goals as parents is to have dinner as a family every night that we can. So we do that, and we talk to each other about our days and our adult stuff in front of our children. It's not just talking to our kids and trying to control, what they're doing and how many bites have you had. And of course that kind of stuff happens too, but we try to model for them that, we have a relationship and we have adult needs too. And we have jobs and problems and that's been, I think, great for our kids to witness to. Our son, who's 4, has just started asking, like, what is your job? And Chad just started a new job yesterday. And, we pray before we eat and we, thank God for the opportunities that we've had. And he's like, what are you talking about? Why is Daddy get a new job? What happened to his old job? And so, we're really open in front of our kids. We try to be affectionate in front of our kids. And obviously, I think affection has been compromised a little bit in the process of having 3 children. But
what's that been like? Because that's a big challenge for a lot of parents, post kids. How has it changed?
I mean, there's less of it in the pregnancy and postpartum arena for me. I'm just being overtouched by other kids.
Right.
But I think we just try to make the most of the times that we do have of more just like long hugs here and there. And doing that in front of our kids. It's funny. We really don't argue much. And we got into a little I don't even remember what it was about. It was something silly.
Probably bacon, right? I'd imagine bacon.
Yeah.
The bacon.
We were kind of teasing each other, but
it wasn't even a real argument.
It wasn't even a real argument. And our son was just like, stop wrestling. He was really thrown off by the fact that we were kind of going at it with each other. And we were like, we're not wrestling. We're just having a conversation. So there's nothing that we really shy away from in front of our kids because we try to just model healthy communication and affection. We're really affectionate with our kids and each other.
Right.
And so I know that growing up in the 90s, some parents, it was like kids never saw their parents holding hands or their parents kissing. And our goal is to model healthy relationships. And so that's what we try to do. And then if there's something parenting wise where it's we typically agree on kind of parenting methods and techniques. But if there's something that, say, Chad does that I don't align with, I just say, I don't agree with that. And then we kind of stop it there and we talk about it later. And talk about different methods to handle those situations. Or, it can be triggering to Chad when one of our kids just really doesn't listen. And so we kind of have to have a conversation later of well, this is what's going on in his life and why he's behaving that way. And kind of here are some tools to deal with it in the future.
Yeah. So similar stuff that we were exploring before we got married about both having a voice, both being equal in the relationship, understandably is still something we're trying to figure out scale for having kids. And certainly there's a lot more decisions you're making now, right? Since you have children, and that would come up more often. How have we gotten better at that? What do you think, Chad?
I mean, I think just time and experience. I think being able to have those moments where maybe I'm a little more stern with our kids, and then Emily, will stop and be like, he's 3, he's not gonna know to listen or have that impulse control or whatever it may be. So I think it's just kind of the repetition a little bit of having those moments where we do need to step back or have a conversation or check in with each other. It just reinforces that we're able to do that, but also helps us align on whatever the topic is, and we move forward and grow from that. So I think that's a huge part of it. And coming back to the affection and intimacy piece, it's really just for us, it's making the most of those times that we do have and being intentional. We don't say I don't know, there was something on social media about every 2 weeks go on a date, every 2 months go overnight, whatever that was. It's we don't really have a fixed schedule of when we go on a date or can get a babysitter, but just when those times come up, we make the most of our time together and be really intentional, just when we do get time without kids, even though that's rarer and rarer these days. sorry, I got off the rails
No.
a little bit.
So there's this like big difference when from before having kids to having kids, where before kids, you have so much unintentional time, right? You're just like always around each other and, can connect or do whatever, whenever you want, right? And then once you have children, it's just kind of a requisite to be somewhat intentional, at least, right? Even though some people really like to still try to be spontaneous, but that's a normal transition and challenge for people. And it sounds like y'all just try to take advantage of any moment you can get. It's not as much of a structured sort of thing.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of been this way since we've been together. It's like it's the assumption that we're together. Like if we're going to do something on the weekends, like we're going to do it together. And I think that really helped us in like our dating and early marriage, where like we just spent a lot of time together. And, like if we were going to plan something, we were probably actually planning the times when we were doing something apart with friends or family or something. But kind of like the assumption was like, we're spending our weekends, we're spending our evenings together. And that has continued as we've had children. Like there's just the assumption that it's like, oh, we go to the farmer's market. Like we did that when it was just us. We did that with one kid, and now carry it on. Like now the third kid's coming along, even though she's a few weeks old. Like we just, we do as much as we can together.
If like one kid has soccer, it's a family affair. We all do. I mean, there's times we have to divide and conquer, but most of the time it's planned time apart versus together.
Right. So what are we looking forward to in kind of the next chapters of our story here?
No diapers.
That time will come.
Not paying for childcare.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The financial burden of children is real in the first years with two working parents.
Right.
Now we know that we're done making babies. So I think we're starting to dream a little bit more about the future and having some freedom when they are a little bit older. Our parents are all getting older, and my mom has said for any overnights over 1 or 2 nights, like they need to all be potty trained. So we know that our future holds
Paris.
Our future holds a trip to Paris that got delayed during the pandemic, and then we ended up making more kids, and so we haven't been able to do that.
We had a trip planned. It had been years in the making. We'd finally like found people to take when we had the one kid.
Right.
Like, people are going to take him. It was all planned, and then the pandemic.
Right.
And we were stuck here. So that's the goal. That's Emily's big, like,
maybe my 35th.
Supposed to be 29th. So maybe 35th. That'll be our big trip.
Nice.
When we probably leave all 3 kids and say sayonara.
Nice. Or bonjour, right?
Exactly.
Wonderful.
So even though we just made another baby, it's like we know there's more freedom in our future, and like we won't be in the trenches forever.
Right.
There will be new challenges that come along, surely, but hopefully our kids will be a little bit more independent. And I'm already looking towards high school graduation so that like we can be empty nesters again.
Yeah.
We love our children.
Yes.
And like, I'm sure that will come in a blink, and we'll be like, what the hell were we thinking?
Right.
But we are just in that phase now where it's like, oh my God, they're always around.
Yeah.
They're always here.
They live there. Yeah.
That's something too that I think we're good at.
Yeah.
At least kind of like between each other, like intimately, like we can say like, man, kids are hard.
Yeah.
Like I just want to go do something on my own. Like I want to go shopping and not have a little monster throwing the most random crap in the cart.
Right.
And so like we can be honest about the struggles of parenting, which I don't know. I'm sure people are like with their partners, but it's just like not what you see on social media, not what you experience with other people, where it's like, oh, you have a little baby. It's so great. And it really, truly is.
Right.
But it's also freaking hard. Like, and so I think that something that we've gotten better at with kids is being able to talk to each other and encourage each other through that and say like, this is not a fun time right now.
Yeah.
Why don't you go, even if it's for an hour, like go do something on your own.
Right.
And just like trying to continue to focus on each other, even though we're parents. Like I always joke with Emily and say like, I picked her. We kind of like randomly got these kids. So she's still the person that I've picked.
Yes.
So like, I want to fight for her to be able to have like that time and space and freedom to be herself and do what she needs to do to take care of herself. And that's always something I try to like advice I give to like our friends and new parents and stuff. But I think that's something that we focused on with all of our children. And I think it served us well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, so much of the beginning of our relationship was figuring out how do we transition gracefully into this next stage, right, of getting married. And clearly that experience has really helped you transition well into this stage, right? And there's many more stages to come, and I'm sure y'all will put those skills to good use as you march forward here. All right, so as we're wrapping up here, what do we think the title of the story is? What do we think?
Don't burn the bacon.
I like that. Don't burn the bacon.
Yeah, don't burn the bacon. Pros to postponement. I don't know.
Yes. All right. Well, we'll figure it out, I'm sure. Thank you so much for joining this week, and so excited to hear about where y'all go next.
Thanks, Trevor. Right, thank you for having us.
Good seeing you.
You're welcome.
Where goes the time?
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Marriage Stories. As always, I am your host, Trevor White. Production of this episode was done by Gabe Martinez. Music provided by OK Carroll. Our website, where you can find all of our episodes and sign up to receive new episodes direct to your inbox, is launchtoland.com. Once again, that's launchtoland.com. Feel free to follow along on all of our social media channels at Launch to Land, as well as our YouTube channel. Starting your own marriage story? Head over to launchtoland.com and check out our premarital counseling video series with host and licensed marriage and family therapist Trevor White. This comprehensive series will prepare you to take off in the marriage you want. Listeners can use a special promo code PROLOGUE to get 15% off your first purchase. Once again, that is promo code PROLOGUE to get 15% off your first purchase. Enjoying marriage stories? Please subscribe, like, share, tell a friend, and leave a 5-star review. And as always, be sure to join us next week as we take another marriage story off the shelf.